So given your thoughts on pace and your urgency, on the other hand, there is definitely the consequence of a backlash, and we're starting to see that in the growing numbers on opt-outs. I gather that it is definitely perhaps highest in the state that I come from, where it seems close to 1 in 6, 1 in 5 test-eligible students, parents opted them out of the ELA test last week. We'll see what happens with the math tests. But there are tens of thousands of students and parents opting out of tests around the country. What do you make of that, that backlash? And will there be some kind of consequence from the federal government if some states don't meet the 95% threshold required by current federal law?
And these are all complicated issues. That's why it's good to sort of have a conversation rather than just sort of do it by sound bites. First, I'll just say, I think in many places, and don't know New York specifically, I've been very public, I think there is too much testing. And one of the things I would like to see in a new ESEA that we put on the table is we should be challenging states to set a cap or set a limit. And that should be determined not by us at the federal level, but the state level. But where there's too much, and we need to have an honest conversation.
But they're opting out specifically from the end-of-year state tests, not tests that have preceded those.
No, I'm fully aware of that. But I'm just trying to make a point that I think we need to do a better job of doing the right amount of assessments, and in many places there has been too much, and often in education we're good at starting new things, we're not good at stopping things. So states had an assessment program 20 years ago, and they did something different 10 years ago, and now they're doing something different today, and too often the old stuff didn't go away, it just got layered on top of each other. So where there's too much, we need to be honest about that, we need to put that out there. These tests are by definition in many places harder. It is a higher bar. It is truly trying to measure college and career readiness. One of the things that's been a little bit underreported by the media, as you may have seen recently, you saw a couple hundred universities come out and say that if students are hitting the cut score on one of the tests, the Smarter Balance, that those students would not have to take remedial classes in college. And for me, that's just a huge, huge deal that people don't understand the ramifications yet. Because for me, the challenge has been in so many places historically, the standards were so low, kids were getting good scores on their state tests and thought they were on track to go to college, and massive amounts, 30, 40, 50% in many states, are taking remedial classes. So they've been lied to for a long time. So to have universities step up and say, actually, we think this is a fair assessment, a good assessment, and if students are hitting a cut score, they don't have to take remedial classes, that's a pretty big step in the right direction.
But just to go back to the opt-outs, I mean, will there be some kind of consequence for those states that don't reach the 95% bar?
So to be clear, states are supposed to work with districts on that, and we'll look at the numbers or whatever, and we think most states will do that. But if states don't do whatever, then we have an obligation to step in. But again, I just want to sort of take back to the genesis of all this stuff. This is really an issue about equity. Historically, as you know, and many people in this room know, our black children, our brown children, our English language learners, our students with disabilities were swept under the rug. We didn't measure gaps. We didn't know how far behind they were. Often when it was a day for assessments, those kids were told not to come to school. And so folks in the civil rights community, folks in the disability community, they want their kids being assessed. They want to know, are we making progress or growth? Are our students on track to be successful or not? And so these are big, these are pretty profound issues, and I don't want anyone to get lost in the noise, and we've got to deal with noise, but this is really about not just an assessment, it's about a civil rights issue and making sure that we know where students are and our gaps closing or not closing.
So you're a public school parent. Have your kids gone through annual testing this year, and what has been their response to it?
We don't spend a lot of time worrying about this stuff. And I think
but do they talk about it? What do they make of the test?
They do okay, and it's just not it's not a traumatic event. It's not anything, and it's just something. It's just part of most kids' education growing up, and it's. I think sometimes the adults make a big deal, and that creates some trauma for the kids, and it's just frankly, it's not a big topic of conversation.
Is that something that you think that has caused a lot of the fervor? Is that there's anxiety being imposed upon children? I
don't know if it's being imposed, but again, it's not something that concerns me a lot or concerns my wife, and I am very sensitive to where kids are being over-tested. That's a problem. But I do also think that students should be assessed annually, and we should figure out, are students growing? Are they improving or not? Is there growth? And over time, are they really on track to be successful? Not